Gruesome crimes, unexpected twists, high-stakes investigations, and secrets unveiled. Welcome to Whispers of the Moonlight. The case we bring to you tonight is a profoundly tragic tale. Behind this mad tragedy lies a series of inexplicable inner conflicts and hidden stories. Some of the details discussed in this case may be haunting and unsettling. If these elements make you uncomfortable, we kindly ask for your understanding, as these details are crucial to the smooth progress of the police investigation. The love and support you've shown to decoding major crimes over time are our greatest motivation and pride. Don't forget to like and subscribe to stay with us for more gripping crime stories. We wish you a peaceful and happy evening with your family and loved ones. Now, let's follow our investigators to Qinghai Province, China. On the early morning of December 26, 1990, a shocking tragedy unfolded in Vbak Village, Lakdu District, Haidong City, Qinghai Province. This village is surrounded by towering mountains in western China. Although it wasn't far from the center of Lakdu District, the village's development in terms of economy, culture, and society was still quite limited due to its challenging terrain and underdeveloped transportation infrastructure, which hadn't yet received significant investment from the authorities. Life for the villagers was extremely difficult, with agriculture remaining the primary source of income for most households. At around 5 a.m. on December 26, despite the harsh winter conditions, 42-year-old Trong Luke had to wake up early to harvest vegetables from his field in time for his wife's market trip. The road from the village to the market was tough to navigate, and his family owned only a single old bicycle. If he didn't leave early, they might miss the market entirely. Their vegetable field wasn't far from their house, just about a 15-minute walk. Even though he had risen early, Trong Luke was surprised when he passed by the Duong family's house at the edge of the village. The Duong family was quite well off, the wealthiest in the area. Unlike most households in the village, the Duong family did not engage in agricultural labor. Instead, their wealth came from practicing traditional Eastern medicine, a trade passed down through generations. Strange, why are they up so early on such a cold morning? The rich really are odd, Trong Luke muttered to himself as he curiously peeked through the slightly ajar gate of the Duong family home. However, with the sky still dark, he couldn't make out anything inside. He continued on to his vegetable field to harvest in time for his wife's market trip. At around 6:30 a.m., carrying a basket full of fresh vegetables on his shoulders, Trong Luke finally headed back home. By now, the sky had grown much brighter. As Trong Luke passed by the Duong family's gate, his curiosity got the better of him, and he peeked inside. What he saw left him frozen in shock. Right in the middle of the wide courtyard in front of the Duong family's house lay a motionless figure, shrouded in the cold morning mist. What on earth? Who's lying out there in the cold? On a freezing morning like this, lying outside like that? Don't they fear catching a cold? Hey, Duong family, wake up. Someone is lying unconscious in your yard. Hello, anyone there? But Trong Luke's calls were met with an eerie, suffocating silence. The gate was clearly open, and the front door was ajar, yet no one responded. Taking a deep breath, Trong Luke pushed open the slightly ajar gate and stepped inside to check on the person. But as he moved closer, his heart sank in terror. Surrounding the motionless body on the ground was a large pool of blood, now coagulated and dark brown. Unprepared for such a sight, Trong Luke opened his mouth and screamed at the top of his lungs. Help! Somebody help! There's a dead person here! His cries for help seemed to tear through the still, misty morning air. Strangely, despite his loud shouts, there was no response or movement from inside the Duong family home. Both scared and angry, Trong Luke decided to storm into the house, determined to scold the family for their negligence. But as soon as he pushed open the main door, the words he had been mumbling under his breath died in his throat. What greeted his eyes was the lifeless body of Duong Loi, lying in a pool of blood. Blood splattered across the room, painting a horrifying scene. Overcome with fear, Trong Luke screamed for help again and bolted out of the house. He ran through the village, calling for the neighbors to come. The once peaceful Vbak village was now in chaos. It was as if the tranquility had been replaced with the turmoil of wartime. From the elderly to the young, Everyone gathered in front of the Duong family's gate, whispering, speculating, and peering anxiously into the gruesome scene. The most burdened was likely the village head of Vbak, who, upon hearing the news, rushed down the mountain on his motorbike to report to the police. Given the panic and severity of the case, the Lac Du District Police quickly mobilized their forces and technical equipment to the scene. After dispersing the crowd of villagers who had gathered, peeking and whispering in shock, the authorities entered the Duong family home. By now, the mountain mist had gradually cleared, giving way to rays of morning sunlight streaming through the porch. The body lying in the courtyard, beside a large pool of coagulated blood, was identified by the village head as Du Thong, 83 years old. The investigation team continued further inside. Lying lifeless in the middle of the living room was Duong Loi, the owner of the house. But the most horrifying scene was in the couple's bedroom. When the light switch was turned on, all the investigators were stunned. Some covered their mouths in shock, while others rushed outside to vomit. Despite having mentally prepared themselves for a particularly serious case, the police could never have anticipated the extent of the brutality inflicted upon this family. Inside the bedroom was the body of a woman who had been decapitated. The victim was identified as Du Tai Quan, Duong Loi's wife. In the far corner of the bed lay the lifeless body of a little girl, not yet 3 years old, the daughter of Duong Loi and Du Tai Quan. The team immediately implemented measures to secure the crime scene and reported the extraordinarily severe case to their superiors, requesting additional support. After dispersing the crowd of villagers gathered around, the investigation team and forensic doctors began examining the 3 bodies: Duong Loi, his 3-year-old daughter, and his wife's grandfather, who was found in the courtyard. The forensic results revealed that all 3 had died from fatal head injuries. These wounds were suspected to have been inflicted by a sharp object with a curved blade. Upon further analysis, the forensic team concluded that the wounds were not caused by a knife or a weapon with a straight and sharp blade. The depth of the wounds was inconsistent, forming a deep groove in the center that tapered off toward the edges. This led investigators to suspect that the weapon might have been a type of hatchet or a similar tool with a curved, sharp blade. Notably, these wounds were inflicted with immense force. In Duong Loi's case, his skull was cracked open, and part of his brain matter had been ejected onto the floor. The killer's ruthlessness, recklessness, and cold-blooded behavior were evident, as they seemed determined to completely annihilate the Duong family. Even an 83-year-old man nearing the end of his life and a 3-year-old child who could barely speak were not spared. However, a thorough check of the crime scene revealed that none of the family's valuable possessions, gold, cash, or other assets, had been stolen. This eliminated robbery as a motive. The possibility of rape was also ruled out, as the mutilated body of Duong Loi's wife found in the bedroom showed no signs of sexual assault before, during, or after her death. Investigators concluded that the most likely motive behind this heinous act was deep-seated hatred or a personal grudge against the Duong family. It must have been an enormous grudge for the murderer to act so brutally against Du Tai Quan. Most chillingly, the victim's head was missing from the scene. What did the killer intend to do with it? Why did they take it? After expanding the search area around Duong Loi's house, the investigators finally located the missing part of Du Tai Quan. It was discarded carelessly in an irrigation ditch behind the house. The condition of the head was utterly horrifying. Du Tai Quan's eyes were still wide open, suggesting that, before her death, she had witnessed something unimaginably terrifying. The investigators and forensic teams meticulously collected and examined every piece of evidence left at this gruesome crime scene to aid the investigation. The village head of Vbak and Trong Luc were asked to stay and provide testimony and additional information. With this, Trong Luc's early morning vegetable delivery for his wife was no longer on schedule. What was even stranger was that, while the entire village of Vbak was gripped by fear, Duong Kiet, Duong Loi's elder brother who also lived in the village, was nowhere to be found. The village head sent a group of young men to Duong Kiet's house to notify him. However, about 20 minutes later, the young men came running back to Duong Loi's house, their faces pale and drained of blood. As they ran, they shouted like a defeated army, "Village head! Village head! Duong Kiet! Duong Kiet!" His whole family has been killed too. What? They've also been killed? The police immediately followed the young men to Duong Kiet's house at the edge of the village to investigate. The scene at Duong Kiet's house mirrored the one at Duong Loi's home. In the living room, the bodies of Duong Kiet's two daughters, both in middle school, were found lying on top of each other on the floor. In the bedroom, Duong Kiet himself was found lifeless, lying in a pool of blood on his bed. The blood had soaked through his pillow. It appeared that he had been killed while still in a deep sleep. The sheer brutality and cold-blooded nature of these murders were unfathomable. Faced with this string of horrifying massacres, the task force reported directly to the director of Lac Du District Police, who immediately came to the scene to oversee the investigation. The crime scene investigation and evidence collection were conducted with great precision and responsibility. According to the police report, the families of the two Duong brothers in Vbac village were murdered between 11 p.m. and 2 a.m. All victims died from injuries caused by the same weapon, and the methods used by the perpetrator at both crime scenes were completely consistent. Notably, based on the direction and location of the victims' head injuries, it was inferred that the perpetrator was approximately 1.7 to 1.77 meters tall, with a strong build and excellent physical strength. In addition, the forensic team collected distinct shoe prints deeply imprinted on the floors of the victims' homes. 1. The shoe size was relatively large. 2. Based on comparisons, the shoe prints matched a type of common labor shoes, inexpensive and widely sold at local markets in the area. 3. The shoe prints found at Duong Loi's house perfectly matched those collected at Duong Kiet's house. This strongly indicates that the perpetrator of these heinous murders was a single individual. The possibility of accomplices is extremely low, as apart from the strange shoe prints, investigators found no other leads at either crime scene. 1. No fingerprints were found. 2. No murder weapon was recovered. 3. Nothing else was left behind to trace the culprit. The initial assessment by the investigative team suggested that the motive for the murders was likely revenge stemming from personal grudges or emotional conflicts. As a result, the police began investigating and reviewing the relationships of the Duong family. Upon preliminary observation in Vbac village, investigators noted that the two Duong brothers' families were hardworking, kind, and diligent. Despite being the most affluent family in the village, they never used their wealth to oppress, discriminate against, or act arrogantly toward their fellow villagers. On the contrary, with a family legacy in traditional Eastern medicine, Duong Loi was known for his kindness. He often helped the villagers with free medical consultations and treatments, never asking for payment. If he did accept payment, it was merely to ease the neighbors' discomfort about receiving help for free. The police investigation revealed no conflicts or disputes involving the Duong family during their time in Vbac village. Duong Loi's elder brother, Duong Kiet, although more hot-tempered and gruff, spent most of his time on the mountains gathering medicinal herbs for his brother to heal others. He had no complex social relationships or personal grudges against anyone in the village. Outside of his work, Duong Kiet was a devoted father who took good care of his two daughters. Despite being encouraged by villagers to remarry after his divorce, Duong Kiet showed no interest in pursuing another marriage. Despite thorough investigations and background checks into the victim's family history and relationships, the police found no apparent leads. During a discussion at the Vbac village head's house to learn more about the Duong family's life and connections prior to the murders, the investigators noticed a strange pair of eyes watching them from behind. Trusting their instincts, the police quickly realized that the wife of the esteemed village head was displaying suspicious psychological behavior. Though she stayed in the kitchen cleaning, every time the police mentioned the possible motives of the killer, the woman would sneak glances at them. Her eyes revealed clear anxiety and fear, quite unlike the usual nosy curiosity of gossiping neighbors. The investigators immediately invited the woman to sit down for questioning. "Mrs. Jiang, it seems like you're hiding something from us, isn't that right? Don't be afraid. Please share whatever you know with us. We promise to keep your information confidential and protect your family. If the information you provide proves useful to our investigation, we'll even propose a reward for your family." Despite the police's encouragement and reassurance, the woman's eyes still betrayed hesitation. After a brief moment, she finally turned toward her husband, who was pouring tea, and spoke. "Honey, I'm sorry. I've kept this from you for 6 years. Please, don't be angry with me. I did it only out of care for your children." The village head of V-Back was completely shocked by his wife's attitude and words. You killed someone? Why would you do that? No, I didn't kill anyone. I could never do something so monstrous. But I think I know who killed the Duong family. You know who it is? Who? Tell us now. The person who killed the Duong family might. No, it's not, might. It's definitely Thatch, Du Tai Quan's ex-boyfriend. Why do you know about the Duong family's matters? How is this connected to you? And why have you kept this from me all this time? After being calmed down by the investigators present at the house, the village head of V-Back managed to regain his composure and asked his wife to recount the entire story. It turned out that, 6 years ago, Mrs. Jiang was the one who arranged the match between Duong Loi and Du Tai Quan, bringing them together. Although Duong Loi was born into the wealthiest family in the village and had a father who was a renowned traditional medicine practitioner, his health had been fragile since childhood, making him weaker than other children his age. He appeared smaller and younger compared to his peers. Duong Loi's father tried numerous herbal remedies to strengthen his son's health, but his condition did not improve. As an adult, due to his weaker physical state compared to his older brother Duong Kiet, Duong Loi was assigned by his father to stay at home to practice medicine, treat patients, and handle lighter tasks. Meanwhile, Duong Kiet, who was stronger, took on the responsibility of climbing the mountains to gather medicinal herbs. It was because of Duong Kiet's wife, who constantly compared, calculated, and grew jealous seeing her husband toil on the mountains while his younger brother led a comfortable life at home, that conflicts arose and their marriage ended. Despite coming from a wealthy family, Duong Loi, with his frail and unattractive appearance, struggled to find a wife. Fortunately, Mrs. Jiang, the wife of the V-Back village head, was acquainted with Du Tai Quan's aunt from a neighboring village. She successfully arranged the match for the couple. But the story was far from simple. Before marrying Duong Loi, Du Tai Quan had endured a life full of hardship and sorrow. Tai Quan lost her father when she was only 8 years old. Her mother, unable to bear the harsh rural life, left for another place. Tai Quan grew up under the sole care of her grandfather. From a young age, Tai Quan and Thatch grew up together. Though not related by blood, Thatch cared for and protected Tai Quan like she was his own little sister. As she grew older, Tai Quan blossomed into a radiant beauty. Shielded and protected by Thatch, Tai Quan promised to marry the handsome young man who had stood by her through all those years of hardship. However, her grandfather disapproved of their relationship. Thatch's family was too poor, and he feared that she wouldn't have a secure future or a comfortable life. After all, Tai Quan's mother had left the family, teaching them a painful lesson about the importance of material stability. Under her grandfather's opposition and with the matchmaking efforts of the V-Back village head's wife, Du Tai Quan quickly married Duong Loi, whose family was far wealthier than Thatch's. The one left behind, Thatch, could only swallow his grief and accept the harsh reality. After getting married, Du Tai Quan was given funds by her husband to open a clothing shop in the town. From a simple, poor village girl, Du Tai Quan transformed into a stylish shop owner. As mentioned earlier, although V-Back village wasn't far from the district center, the lack of proper roads made traveling very difficult. Because of this, Du Tai Quan often stayed at her clothing shop for business, sometimes only returning home to visit her husband after a week. Thatch, after being abandoned by the woman he had cared for and loved, was filled with resentment. He even sought out Du Tai Quan's grandfather to curse him, blaming the old man, that money-grubbing miser, for causing the girl he loved to leave him. Thatch believed that if her grandfather hadn't intervened, they could have been a happy couple by now. After hearing Mrs. Jiang's story, the investigators still weren't entirely satisfied. They believed that being abandoned in a relationship, while painful, was a fairly common occurrence in society. It did not justify the cold-blooded murder of an entire family of 7. Furthermore, if Thatch were the culprit, he would have likely acted 6 years ago, when his feelings of despair and hatred were at their peak. Why would he wait until now, after Du Tai Quan had been married for 6 years, to kill her family. This didn't align with common sense. At this point, Mrs. Jiang continued to speak. Well, there's something I've only recently found out. That's why I suspect him. Before this, I had no idea. It turns out that Du Tai Quan and Thatch had a close, intimate relationship that crossed boundaries even before she married Duong Loi. She wasn't even a virgin when she got married. Tai Quan had gotten pregnant by Thatch, but this was a secret that only her aunt knew. Following her aunt's advice, Tai Quan had the pregnancy terminated before her wedding. Earlier this year, during the Lunar New Year, I visited her aunt in the neighboring village and drank with her. I guess she got too drunk and ended up telling me everything. But during that meal, there were a few other people present, some of whom were neighbors who lived close to Thatch. The power of rumors knows no bounds. Within days, Thatch learned about the incident. He even confronted Du Tai Quan at her clothing shop in town, demanding an explanation. Thatch accused her of heartlessly ending the life of their unborn child. Moreover, he went as far as threatening to exact revenge on her entire family. If not her, then who else could it be? From Mrs. Jiang's description, Thatch's height and physical build closely matched the profile established by investigators. Additionally, his motive for revenge, stemming from emotional conflict and bitterness over their failed relationship and the abortion Du Tai Quan underwent, only strengthened their suspicion. For someone as deeply attached as Thatch, this must have been a devastating psychological blow. Armed with strong evidence and logical reasoning, the police immediately mobilized to the neighboring village to locate the suspect. It didn't take long for the investigators to locate and surround Thatch's house. However, upon entering, they discovered that Thatch was now married with 2 young children. Thatch's wife appeared visibly frightened and confused by the overwhelming presence of police officers around her home. Upon inquiry, the investigators learned that Thatch had gone to work in the fields early that morning. His wife even provided the exact location where he was working. As the team prepared to leave Thatch's house, one of the investigators suddenly froze, staring intently at the shoe rack near the front door. "Come here," he called out, his tone serious. "Do you see anything unusual? It's just a shoe rack? Nothing seems off. Look closer," the investigator insisted. After closer examination, another officer exclaimed, "This is it. These are the same type of shoes we found traces of at the Duong family crime scene. Exactly. The style and size are an exact match. Notably, these are work shoes. Work shoes, by nature, should have at least some dust or mud stuck to them. Why are these shoes so clean? Furthermore, the laces have been completely removed, as if the shoes had just been freshly washed." With so many eerie coincidences, the investigators couldn't ignore their suspicions. Could Thatch really be the culprit behind these gruesome murders? Was his motive truly fueled by betrayal from his ex-lover? All will be revealed in part 2 of this case. Don't forget to hit like, subscribe, and share to follow the next part of the story and help us reach our first milestone of 1,000 subscribers.